people have seen many things in boxing, seen many articles, many stories over the years, even prior to doing YouTube. And some of them surprise you, some of them don't, to be honest with you. The ones that surprise you really do surprise you. This one right here, I never thought I'd read this. I certainly never thought I'd read it for said reason. It says the following: Joseph Parker fails drug test. This is from Sky Sports News. Now, I'd seen reports of this breaking earlier today, and it got a lot of traction very, very quickly, and it was reported by a lot of outlets: Daily Mail, TalkSport, Ring Magazine, etc. Before we carry on, if you could just look on screen very, very quickly, please do consider hitting the like, hitting the subscribe, hitting the notification bell as well. It really does help me out big time. It says, again, Joseph Parker fails drug test. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, for what? You know, he has put a lot of weight on, and it's not fat weight, a lot of muscle. You know, big shoulders, chest looks bigger, you know. There was that video he did of him eating a raw fish. I mean, man really wants to get dysentery, doesn't he? But you're thinking, okay, is it something to do with that, putting on all that weight? And, you know, is it maybe that, you know, he needs stamina for later on in the fight? Because he did fight very aggressively, uncharacteristically aggressively in that Fabio Wardley fight. Joseph Parker can be aggressive when he wants to, but when he's in there with a world-level operator, very seldom is he that aggressive. Well, it says the following, and we're going to use code words for the substance, because YouTube, there's certain words, I mean, there's certain words like unalive you have to chuck in there, seriously. That's how bad it's got. It says, heavyweight tested positive for traces of the old how you doing on the day of Fabio Wardley defeat. Former heavyweight champion Joseph Parker, I almost said Anthony Joshua there. No, definitely not. Former heavyweight champion Joseph Parker could be facing a 2-year ban after trace amounts of the how you doing were discovered in a routine test given to the Voluntary Anti Doping Agency on the day of his defeat to Britain's Fabio Wardley in October. It says Parker's routine test given to VADA, the Voluntary Anti Doping Agency, returned trace amounts of the old how you doing. The test was conducted on the day of the New Zealanders heavyweight fight against Fabio Wardley, which the Brit won. The news of Parker's failed test only emerged today, Friday. Frank Warren's Queenbeer Promotions said, the Voluntary Anti Doping Agency Association, VADA, last night informed all required parties that Joseph Parker had returned an adverse finding following an anti-doping test conducted on October the 25th, day of the fight, in relation to his bout with Fabio Wardley. While the matter is investigated further, no additional comments will be made at this time. Spencer Brown, Joseph Parker's manager, UK manager, said, we're in total shock at the findings. We are just waiting to speak to Joe and David Higgins and his promoter, Frank Warren. What else is it? It's very early days. It's still very early days. And we will get to the bottom of it all. The British Boxing Board of Control told Sky Sports it is investigating the matter. It goes on further in this article to say, possibility Parker is facing a 2-year ban. This is from Sky Sports boxing expert Andy Scott. The headline is shocking. Everyone loves Joseph Parker. I think he's most people's second favourite heavyweight. But there were questions as to why to take the Fabio Wardley fight. And that's legit. I mean, you look at someone like Adji Kabayel. I'm not begrudging him having a comeback fight or return home fight against, well, I don't even know the guy's name because he's just obscure. He's not obliged to fight a Fabio Wardley. He was in line to fight Alexander Usyk and said he took a risky fight against Wardley, and now this is the headline. Not only did he lose the fight, he now has an investigation that will have to come out and clear his name. For context, Liam Cameron is the high-profile case in boxing with similar circumstances. He received a 4-year ban for trace amounts of the how you doing, but the rules have since then changed. It will be interesting to see how this develops further. There's a full investigation. We'll wait to see what the outcome of this is, but it is possible that he faces a 2-year ban. That is the end of the article. That is insanity, if that's true. It would explain, if he had the how you doing in his system, even from that day, why he fought very uncharacteristically against Fabio Wardley, because he seemed like he literally wanted to unalive him in there. And that would explain a little bit of that. You know, that substance would not necessarily be a performance enhancer over the course of a camp. It would probably help you on fight night if it's still in your system, which it obviously is. The questions then come, did he intentionally take it that day? You would figure that would be an incredibly stupid thing to do on the day of the fight. Knowing as well you're probably going to be tested. Did he take it beforehand? Because depending on the amount you've taken, again, this is assuming that Joseph Parker is guilty. I'm just chucking it out there. If depending on the amount, that will depend on how long it remains in your system. So from what I can gather, if you've taken very limited amounts, very little amounts, it could stay in your system. Depending on the nature of the test, if it was a saliva test, if it was a urine test, if it was a hair test, it's going to stay in your system a lot longer. But the amount you've taken, or you don't ingest it, you know what I mean? You do it another way. But it would last, depending on the amount, it could last anything from 1 to 2 days, maybe even as much as a week. But the question is that if this is not like having plausible deniability on something, It's not like you've taken nandrolone and you can blame it on Tainted Boar. It's not like you've taken clenbuterol. Not that Parker would be taking clenbuterol because he wouldn't need to. He's a heavyweight. But you get what I mean. And you can blame it on tainted beef and stuff like that. And, you can bring up the scientific experts and stuff like that. Conor Benn with his dossier about the eggs and all that stuff. It's not like something like that where you can kind of say, right, I've got a bit of plausible deniability because it's in this or it's in that, unless the guy went to Bolivia or something where you can get that caramelized. And even then, I don't think it's actually that. There's not really a lot there's not really much comeback, right? There really isn't. Then the question is that where did this all come from? Why is it? Now, immediately you're going to say, well, he's around Team Fury. Well, he's already training in Dublin. It's not like he needs to come to London or Manchester, like that. He's training in Dublin. There's no time. It takes an hour. I know, I fly home once a month. I'm flying home in 2 weeks. It takes an hour to get to London from Dublin. It's nothing. So it's not like you need to base yourself in the UK. But it is interesting because that substance has surrounded Team Fury, who Joseph Parker is very, very much, he's in their inner circle. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying, this is immediately what people are saying. My friend texted me about this earlier and he was like, was he partying with Fury? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me. But we have to ask those questions because this is so uncharacteristic of someone like a Joseph Parker. I've met Joseph Parker very briefly. I met him at the press conference with his fight with Dubois, which never happened. I met him backstage at that. Very nice man. But everyone I've spoke to who's ever met Joseph Parker has said arguably it's their favourite person to meet because he is such a nice character. Again, I'm not, look, at the end of the day, I'm not saying if he did take it, I'm not got to turn around and say, oh, you're a terrible person for taking this, that, and the other, I don't care, do what you got to do, right? To each his own, I guess at the end of the day, you do what you want to do. But why would you do this knowing that you have a fight coming up for one? It's a recreational substance. Why would you do this knowing you have a fight coming up and knowing there's a very high likelihood that you'd be tested for it? And irrespective of the fact that it probably won't help you on fight, now I'd say probably won't, but you're going to be tested and that's still a no-no. It's still a performance enhancer. We've seen people in other sports. You've seen dart players of all people. You can imagine, you take one look at them and you think, yeah, the performance enhancers they're on. But some of them have taken, illegal substances like that. I think it was that actually with a dart player last year or so. And he ended up facing, I think a couple of months suspension, stuff like that. They Benavidez a couple of years ago. Many years ago now, I think it was actually going back 2018, 2019. He was WBC champion at the time at 168 pounds. He was caught with that in his system and he was stripped of his title. I don't think he faced a ban because, again, I think it's one of those kind of grey areas where you look at it and you say the person in taking it, it's really recreational use, you would imagine. It's not going to be for a performance enhancement. Again, you would assume, you would imagine. So you look at that and you think, okay, really, what do? You got to set an example. You can't just let him get away scot-free. But at the same time, it's not like he's trying to, boost his performance in the ring by taking something that's going to give him an advantage over the other guy. So it is a bit of a grey area there. But it is just, honestly, reading that, it's one of the things I never thought I'd read. I mean, Joseph Parker even failing a test for anything, much less that, it's crazy. So yeah, a lot of people in the world of boxing are shocked. It would answer some questions again. We have to let due process go on. I think with Joseph Parker, he needs to maybe follow Tyson's example when he had his issues and just, say nothing or say the bare minimum. Bit like Dylan White as well, say the bare minimum. People forget. Ryan Garcia, people were more pissed at Devin Haney than they were at Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney didn't do anything wrong. Whereas Conor Benn, was everyone's fault but mine. I'm innocent. These are all this. Everyone's out to get me. And people don't particularly like that. And people keep getting reminded, oh yeah, that happened. Not the brightest thing to do. And Eddie Hearn, no pun intended, egging him on, wasn't the best either. So we got to wait and see. We got to let due process happen on this. But, I mean, it's just insanity. Absolute insanity to be reading that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will leave it there. Let me know. Be interested to know what you guys have to say about it. Until next time, peace.